Good evening, 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Castater?
Yes. Mr. Gunther?
Present.
Mr. Beckman?
Present.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Present.
Mrs. Webb?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Present. Everyone please stand and join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Dr. Rice, would you like to review the agenda for us, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Young. After the review of the agenda, we'll have approval of the agenda. Review, approval, and correction of any minutes from previous board meeting. We have an exciting opportunity this evening to recognize National Merit semifinalists and commended scholars. Mr. Martin's here to present those students. Several items for board discussion involving policy. We do have a quick food service presentation that will take care of some requirements that we have through the state. Legislative, Butler Tech, and public comments, followed by superintendent's reports and recommendations over policy and personnel, followed by the treasurer reports and recommendations.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on that? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Yes. Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Yes.
Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
Mr. Gunther?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. Okay. You have a copy of the minutes. You've had a chance to look those over. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 19th board meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay. Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Kleinfelder?
Aye.
Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
Mr. Gunther?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. All right.
Next, we have on our agenda, I would like to introduce to you Ross High School Principal, Mr. Brian Martin, who will recognize our students in attendance tonight.
Dr. Rice, Mr. Castater, esteemed members of the board, thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. One of the best things that I get to do in the course of my job as high school principal is recognize the outstanding achievements of our students. We had 3 students who scored exceptionally well on the PSAT NMQST test that they took during their junior year. So that is the pre-SAT test and National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. So just a little background on that examination. That is taken usually in the fall of junior year, and based on the scores that they receive, students can qualify for various forms of recognition. So we had 1 student qualify as a commended student this year, that based on last year's test. His name is Grayson Holly. Unfortunately, Grayson was unable to be here this evening. We had 2 students qualify as semifinalists, meaning they move on to the next round in the scholarship competition. So just to give you an idea, approximately 1.3 million juniors across the country took that test last fall. Only 16,000 qualified as semifinalists. So for those of you that are mathematically challenged like myself, that's approximately 1.2%. So we actually had 2 students who qualified as semifinalists, and what that means is they'll go through an application process, hopefully move on to become finalists, and will be eligible for approximately 6,700 different forms of scholarships that will be available. So roughly 6,700 scholarships out of 16,000 kids, that gives you a pretty good shot of earning some money. So not only did the 2 students we have who are semifinalists score very well, actually both students earned a perfect, what is considered a perfect score on the PSAT. So it's my honor to recognize one of them that was able to be here this evening, Ben Schuler. so, you're legal now. Family graciously hosted our float construction, this fall, so, Mr. Schuler, kudos to you for taking that on, that responsibility. That is not for the faint of heart. Ben is heavily involved in cross-country band and robotics here at school and is currently ranked third in the senior class. So obviously, we are very, very proud of Ben and his accomplishment. Once again, only 1.3% of the students who took this test qualify as semifinalists. So obviously, a tremendous achievement on Ben's part. Ben, any words for the group? Plans for next year?
I'd just like to thank the board and thank you, Mr. Hartman, for bringing me out here. And I'd like to thank all the educators in our building for making this possible, and I'd like to thank my parents for always being supportive.
Good to hear. Congratulations.
With the, you mind Ben popping up with the board? And is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. It's great. Where do you want us?
Is this gonna be on social media?
Absolutely.
You
You're
have to
going
sign-
viral.
Maybe just right here, just
Okay.
line up right here and I'll snap a picture.
Oh, sorry. Front and center, bud. There you go. Man of the day.
There we go. I like it.
We're good, I think I got everybody. One, two, three, cheese. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Congratulations again, buddy. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Ben, for coming, and I'm sure you have a lot of homework to do, so now's a good time to make an exit. All right. So items for board discussion, we're going to go to policy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Young. And we, I don't want to sugarcoat this. We've got a few to get through tonight.
What's
We're
that?
I don't want to sugarcoat this. We've got a few to get through tonight.
Yes.
We're going to go through 15 pieces of policy, and if you think back a couple months, I said I was going to try to do 10 each month. Well, I upped it to 15 this month because we're pretty far out of compliance with some of our policies, and if we don't get them taken care of now, to go back at a later time and do that will require us to pay some extra fees through board docs to get them updated. So I pushed the ones that are kind of going to time out to the front, and that's why we're going to do 15 of them this month. So if you'll bear with me here.
And thank you, Dr. Rice, for working hard to get us back in compliance.
Absolutely. I would say it's my pleasure, but policy's not very pleasurable. Policies, and I've kind of grouped these, they're in alphabetical order in the agenda, but I've grouped them kind of by subject matter for the sake of this evening's discussion. We'll start with policies EBCD and regulation EBCD. Both of these policies are in the event of a catastrophic event happening, i.e. a pandemic or something else that would shut down a school or the schools for an extended period of time, meaning we would blow way past our calamity days, which we haven't come close to in many, many, many years. So because of these policies, we need to have an approved process in place of what we are going to do to educate our students. So this is an area as we go through this policy that I know we have to clean up some things. We actually need to bring this policy to the board for the board to read it and discuss it in open public. We actually have to have it run by our association and have them sign off on it or acknowledge that that plan is in place. So this is something we still have some work to do on this policy and regulation. Any questions over those two policy and regulation? The next set of series all deal with what we refer to in public ed as the Auditor of State's guidance or Auditor of State's, it was a FAQ that he established. So that's policies GBCC, GBG, GBI, KI, and KJA. So the Auditor of State about 18 months ago established what we refer to as the FAQ. And I'm going to try to say this as politically unbiased as possible. They have set up a series of conditions that schools have to now meet that make it very, very difficult for educators that work in that school district to share their thoughts or opinions on levies. So these all look like they're about campaigns or political campaigns, but I want you to understand it's about running levies. And it's the Auditor of State who doesn't support school levies getting their hands involved in school levies. There was a lawsuit in the Dayton area for a superintendent. He was actually charged with using his time on the taxpayer's dime to support and promote a levy. So for instance, if we got to a point where we needed to run a levy again, now with this new guidance, Steve and I can never go out and speak publicly for a levy. We can never have a pro-levy sign in our yard because the Auditor of State has established that in these particular roles, we are always on the clock. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I am the superintendent and Steve is the treasurer. So we cannot delineate when we are not on the clock versus when we are on the clock. A teacher, a paraprofessional, a bus driver can, right? They have specific contracted hours, so they can put a levy in their yard. They can go to levy rallies. They can, off of hours, they can support the levy. So these policies, they come under the guise of political campaigns, but it is about public schools levies. So just want to make sure I hit all my talking points on that one. One particular thing on KJA, I noticed this when we got into this policy. KJA, we had an update to do for this policy, but we had never approved this policy to begin with. So if you, in your packet, you'll see how I highlight green for new language. The whole policy is green. So that is a policy that a while back we should have already approved. Are there any particular questions about those policies? Mr. Young, you look like you got something to say.
No, I just wanted to let people know that the board has received all of these in writing with new language in bold and old language crossed through. So
These
we're
are
not
just first
asking
reading,
questions.
These are just first
It's
reads.
because we have looked through these ahead of time
And to Mr. Kleinfelder's point, this is first read, so
Yeah,
we'll
first reading.
we'll act on them next month. The public can always go on to board docs. It's linked on the Ross Rams webpage, and they can read and see all of our policies. As you can see, all the minutes and the agendas as well. Next policy is GCB1, another House Bill 33. This allows for regular mail or to electronically deliver a contract or contract information to teaching staff. Prior to this, again, these are some silly changes with House Bill 33. It had to be in person or through certified mail. Any questions about that one? Policy GCE, this puts into law the easing of restrictions put in place during COVID when it comes to the national and state crisis for subs, right? So they relaxed big time the qualifications for someone to become a substitute teacher during COVID because we just couldn't get anybody to walk into buildings. So this puts into law that you can still do that. So what it means is districts, and through our consortium, we could hire non-bachelors. Before you had to have a bachelor's to be a sub, we can hire non-bachelor's folks. And we understand one thing that is in place is I have to personally approve this particular person, so it's not like a normal sub that just can go to the consortium and show their credentials. If it's a non-bachelor, and they put that in place because, I mean, let's be frank, we don't want to hire a 19-year-old sub to walk around the high school and substitute teach high schoolers, right? So I have to actually have my stamp of approval. This is not something we are running around doing at all. You know, if I were to give an example, let's say there is a student teacher that's in a classroom for the first half of the year, right? They're pretty much done with everything at the midway point. Is that appropriate for this person that's going to graduate in May, maybe to substitute teach only in that classroom that they student taught in, right? And I would involve the building principal to make sure that this is the right recommendation and all those things. So it's kind of alarming language when you look at it, thinking about we could have anybody in here subbing, but just know that there is that kind of checks and balances. Any questions about GCE? Policy GCPD. This is another one of those little silly changes. Instead of a specific type of written record for termination hearings or the process, Now it just simply says complete. Before that, it said, I think it was stenographer had to have, had to be present. So again, just a silly little change. It's bureaucracy. Policy JCE, we have at our disposal the ability to turn in for loss of driving privileges students who are truant or simply drop out. This now puts the exception of home education in there now, so we can't turn those kids in if we're not getting written records or education requirements from them. Any questions about that? Policy JEDA, similar to the earlier policy change for teachers and termination process, we can now send an email or regular email notice for truancy hearings for students. So again, before it had to be hand-delivered or certified mail. Policy JEDR, it's actually regulations, puts into place the ability for a parent to request a virtual meeting with the superintendent if a student has lost their driving privileges. So, and again, it mentions that the parents need to be notified, and they can be notified by email for that particular hearing. 2 more to go. JEG, simple change in wording to add home education. And the last one, JHCD, this puts items in place for self-care for diabetic students, and it also requires seizure plan for students who have an active seizure disorder. Again, all of these policies tonight were from House Bill 33 or the Auditor of State's FAQ. Please let me know if you have any questions.
I'm just really disappointed in the way that they've taken away total control or oversight, is probably a better word, of the homeschooling or home education as it's called now. In the past, you know, the parents had to present to the superintendent a curriculum that they were going to be using, and the student had to have some sort of testing done each year to basically show what kind of progress they made, and now all that's out, right?
Correct. It's one form within the first 2 weeks of school.
Now the parent just says, I'm home educating my child, and that's the end of it.
That's the end of it. You cannot require, legally, we can no longer require anything. We can't
Right.
require the curriculum, we can't require days of attendance, grades, anything along those lines.
And I guess, so if you've got a student who's in trouble because of truancy, not coming to school, the parent just says, well, I'm going to home educate them, and that's the end of the truancy issues.
They claim that the form has to be filled out within the first 2 weeks, but there is an
Oh,
appeal,
okay.
there is an appeal
Well, that's
process.
good.
There's an appeal process though, so
Okay,
you know how that's gonna go.
all right, well,
So, when they come back, because as a high school principal, when they come back, they've been homeschooled, they got no curriculum, no anything, and some mom or dad or grandma or whoever's doing it says they got 23.5 credits, a credit and a half from graduating.
Correct.
There's no verification of what they took or anything.
There's no verification. You can test them to accurately place them in the course that they need. If they're coming back to you and we need to do a math placer to make sure we're putting them in the right class, you can do that, but you cannot test them for a grade or for a credit.
So I'm credit deficient, 2 years behind, I drop out in homeschool, get all A's, come back, and I'm ready to go. And we just have to take it. That doesn't seem right. I mean, I'm sorry,
I mean, keep in mind that all these things were in House Bill 33, which was the budget bill.
yeah.
So think about that.
well,
All these things
that's a
were
whole nother set of problems.
all these things were thrown in the budget bill. And we, you know, I was in Columbus a couple weeks ago, and we're coming into a lame duck session, and they said, watch during lame duck sessions, because that's when everything gets slammed in there. So just be careful, be aware of what's coming.
All right, so those policies then will be open to any public comment on those, and then we'll be approving those next month.
Yes,
correct?
November
Okay.
21st.
Great, thank you. Okay, next is our food service presentation.
Yes, we have Ms. Karen Chestel, who's our food director of food services. She's going to walk us through a quick presentation. I think she brought snacks, too.
Food service, you can't go anywhere without food, right? So please, grab them on Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. So, as Dr. Rice stated, every year we have to present to the board the fact that we do serve healthy snacks. Okay, we do not serve the words junk food. Everything has to fall within the guidelines of the USDA, and there's different policies set up that we follow for that, different formulas we follow for that. And so my job here is to just inform you that we are indeed following all those policies. One thing that, couple things, when I researched everything for you, I did give you the, like, 3 handouts. I believe all of you had those in your packet. And one of the things is that, you know, a quarter of the students' daily calories come from snacks. A quarter of them. So we all love eating snacks. We know our kids love to eat snacks. One of the things is that healthy eating patterns are more likely to perform better academically. That's what we're trying to do. They consume more healthy foods and beverages during the school day when there are smart snacks available, and the healthy choice is the easy choice. So one thing I want you to, a couple things, I'm sorry, I keep saying one thing. GFS, Atlantic, everybody that we buy our snacks from, they give us a list every year of their current items of what they have, so we know then what we can purchase. Also, during the school year, I go to about 3 different food shows, and our vendors are there, and they're also promoting new things and coming up with things maybe I didn't see before, so we have something different than we can offer. Over there, we have actually the Cheetos, which is a ranch style. That was new this year that we were able to get in, and the students are just loving it. They're eating them up. Everything else over there, we've actually been serving for the last few years. If you look at the ingredients, it has to say whole grain. It has to say fruit as one of the first ingredients. It has to say protein, or it has to say dairy. Those are the requirements for something to be a snack. One of the things is, too, that during the school year, other than the foods provided as part of the school meal program, then we can also serve these snacks as treats. We do that a lot on our meals. So a lot of times you'll see a cookie on the menu for a day, and that cookie is also a smart snack. For drinks, we can sell water to all the students, obviously. However, there's requirements, and a lot of people don't understand this. So for elementary, we serve up to 8 ounces of water. We sell at up to 8 ounces of water. And for the middle school, we go up to 12 ounces. And they can also have 100% fruit juice, which is actually carbonated, but it can't go any higher than 12 ounces. The high school can have 20 ounces. So we serve 20 ounces of a lot of our drinks. We do Propel, we do G0. Those are all very popular drinks besides our flavored waters and regular water. So all of these are different requirements that we have to do. One of the things I do want to bring up is that for fundraisers, a lot of people don't remember this, and one of the things we've discussed in some of the meetings with the principals is to please make sure that if your school is doing fundraisers during the day, they need to be a smart snack, okay? A lot of times people will come up to me and say, hey, we're going to sell like the Boo grams that we did. So we came up with the fruit roll-ups that are actually a fruit snack, and they purchased those and they made the Boo grams out of them. So we can't do like the Tootsie Pops any longer, especially if we're selling them during the day for the students. Now, if it's something that a lot of times the high school will sell cheesecakes and cookie, dough and things like that, those are things people take home. The students hopefully don't break into them and eat them during the day. But those types of things are fine to sell. But that's something that's an actual USDA state policy. The other thing is on the pricing of our smart snacks. I'm getting out of the realm here a little bit, but I just want everybody to understand that we have to charge at least 25% above whatever a snack would cost. And usually they suggest 50%, just because that way, the cafeteria has to pay for salaries. We pay for the time to order, the time to put it away, to put it out, and to sell it. So all of this is figured out by a formula, and I do it every year, where I do this formula to make sure that we're not underselling and that we're not overselling or overpricing. And that's pretty much what we do with Smart Snacks. Did I stay at my 5 minutes?
No, you're perfect. There is a form that we have to fill out in order for funding, and part of that form, as I was reading it, said that there has to be a board presentation. So that's how we got here this evening. So nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Appreciate it, Karen.
No.
You're doing a great job with the food service.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's move on to our legislative report. Do we have anything, Mrs. Webb?
Yes, and I emailed all the board members and Dr. Rose, Mr. Castater as well. Can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah, just a couple things. So as Dr. Rice mentioned, Congress is, they're presently in lame duck, and there's only, after November's election, there's only 5 Senate sessions left and 4 House sessions left, so until the new year. But several things have been pushed through and go into effect as of next Thursday. For one, House Bill 47, which requires all buildings and playing fields to have AED equipment in them. So that's something that we've been talking about for a while now. House Bill 147 states that at school events, they have to accept cash from people. I know a lot of, we've gone into the more electronic system, but cash at events. House Bill 214 it's a policy on school staff and standards and expectations for staff members, prohibits the soliciting or requiring of employees and students to affirmatively ascribe to an ideology. So there's some questions there about, First Amendment rights and whatnot, free speech with that one. So that'll be interesting. Senate Bill 29 is in regards to student technology records. And this one is actually really interesting because at Ross, we're a one-to-one school. So all students have, they bring home a computer. And even though it is the school's property and the school's devices and on the school's network, if the school wants to search a child's Chromebook, for example, they would have to notify the parents that they are going to be searching their own Chromebook that they issued to the student. So I thought that one was kind of interesting too.
Yeah, if I could interject on
Yes,
Senate Bill
go right
29.
ahead.
So 29 was one of these ones that was snuck in that schools didn't even really know about, and schools have collectively lost their minds on it. So I was in a meeting last Thursday with a bunch of superintendents, and legal there said, take a deep breath. Like, they don't realize what they passed, and now everybody's going crazy. So there's going to be several amendments to Senate Bill 29, but Mrs. Webb is absolutely correct. It can be our device during the school day on our network, and if, we have like Surly that looks at things to make sure they're not going to inappropriate websites. If it were to hit on there and we were to decide to bring that student in and look on their device, we have to give the parents a 72-hour heads up.
Yeah. 72-hour notice, yeah.
So you can
Or notify
imagine-
them within 72
Yeah,
hours.
So you can imagine why this became a thing, right? Because somebody's computer was looked at and something was found on someone's computer, and it actually wasn't the student, it was their parent. And their parent may or may not have been an uncle of somebody that's in the Ohio General Assembly. So that's why this became a thing.
Okay.
So, and now it's under the guise of like Big Brother's watching you, right? And that's how they sold it. But school districts collectively said, wait a minute, because what it also requires is all of our vendors, so all of our platforms, anything we use technology-wise, they have to have a statement of, we're not keeping your records, we're not doing all these things, and they have to produce all those. So all of those folks are freaking out as well, because again, this was like passed in the dead of the night, like no one even knew it was coming. So what Ennis Britton told us last Thursday is just take a deep breath. It's going to change. It's not going to change during this lame duck session, but it will change shortly thereafter, because they're feeling the pressure in Columbus about what they passed, not even knowing
Yeah.
what they passed.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. And it's, I mean, and these bills are, I mean, they're a couple hundred pages in length, so it's, yeah. A lot of them don't think read it too thoroughly. Senate Bill 112 is regarding protective door assemblies. So hardware on our doors, and Devin gave a presentation about this last month, has to be compliant with the 2015 National Life Safety Code. So as far as like the locks and stuff on school doors, which we are compliant with this. Senate Bill 168 is in regards to the education deregulation and flexibility that districts have in terms of teacher evaluations, principal evaluations. Currently, right now, we use a state system. It was called OTES, now it's called Ohio ES, Ohio Education System. And it will allow for local districts, if they want to develop their own system of evaluation. House Bill 68, or otherwise known as the SAFE Act, which is the Students from Experimentation Act. It was passed back in January. Then there was a Franklin court judge who ruled it unconstitutional, so it was blocked for a little bit. But then as of August 6th, it's now in effect. The law's in effect. And basically it's twofold. With some of these bills, I like to put a couple different things in them. One is parental consent and notification before any medical health professional or counselor, for example, would treat or speak to adolescents regarding their gender. Also in that, House Bill 68 is the Save Women's Sports Act, which prevents transgender students, for example, a transgender male from participating in a female sport. The issue with this is it does conflict with federal policy, so
Title IX.
we're kind of at a standstill with that. But it's currently a law. Whether or not it sticks, we'll see. Then there's also Senate Bill 104. This one is currently awaiting the governor's signature, so it's passed in both the House and the Senate, and it regards the utilization of restrooms and students using restrooms of the sex that they were assigned with at birth. What else do we have here? Also in that bill, so we're talking about restrooms, is CCP. So it's in the same bill. As who's using what restroom. We're talking about CCP, and this just expands the threshold, or makes it, I guess, makes the path of least resistance for educators to teach CCP classes. It used to be you had to have, for example, like a graduate degree in the certain subject that you were teaching in order to be a CCP teacher, which stands for College Credit Plus. Now, they just have to comply with whatever agreement or articulation they have with the universities. And then House Bill 432, that applies to career tech educators. I apologize, my screen is really dark, my computer's broken, so it's hard for me to see. That is currently in Senate committee, so it's passed by the House. The Senate is currently reviewing it, and it's just a way for career tech educators, and it's more of like a grow your own program where somebody who wants to come in out of industry and teach career tech programming, which we have several teachers here that do that, it makes a pathway for them to get their alternative licensure easier. And then House Bill 230, it is currently passed in the House, and it is in Senate committee as well. And this is requiring schools, K-12 schools, to provide fentanyl education to students. And that is all I have.
What about House Bill 407? That's a good one.
Oh, the private school accountability and
There we
transparent.
go.
Well, yes, it's not in effect yet.
Not in effect.
And I have to do more research on that one, Dr. Rice, but it's something to do with like the testing that private schools have to do, and they have to report the testing, just like public schools. We have, our air tests, like our state assessments. They're now going to, the state is now requiring private schools
Well,
to
they
do
want
that.
to.
You want to. It hasn't passed
Yeah,
yet
They want to, because they're getting so much public funds.
because of voucher, ed choice, all
choice.
of that.
What's President Huffman think of that?
Yeah, yeah.
Has that got a chance of getting through the Senate?
He's going to be the leader next Senate session, too. No, I mean, ed choice is ed choice. Pandora's box has been opened with that. I don't know if it's ever going to come back. To me, this is where we should be lobbying now, is that some accountability, licensure standards for teachers, a report card, state tests. Your population can't look just one way. You have to take all kids, that kind of stuff. Like what we do in public ed,
Right, right.
what we get to do.
There was also, and I forget which bill it was, but something along the lines of like open enrollment as well, which might impact us in the future, where you can no longer, like right now, we don't have open enrollment other than staff members' children.
Right.
But where anybody could open enroll if you have the capacity. I heard rumors of that one too.
Okay. I know, going back to the AED requirement, I know we have defibrillators in all of the buildings, but it sounds like this would require us to make sure we had one at any athletic event outside as well. And I think the trainer
We do.
always has one with them, don't they,
Yes.
when they're,
We do. We have two, I believe, two portables that the trainers use. And then we also, Mr. Beck received a grant last year or the year before that we had one installed near the baseball and softball fields at one of the storage facilities out there. So there's a
oh, okay.
portable one that stays out by baseball
Okay.
and softball.
Good, okay. Very good, thank you, Amy, it was quite a report. That's very good. Butler Tech report, Mr. Kleinfelder?
I'll be a little shorter.
Sorry.
All the good news Amy threw out there, but we met Tuesday night at Butler Tech. There was a couple pieces of good news regarding Ross. Dr. Sprankles indicated that we were going to get a biomedical program at Ross High School based on Project Lead the Way program. We didn't have to give up anything for that?
I can't divulge that.
All right, well, good negotiation if we did. They did have their groundbreaking today at Middletown Airport for the hangar and aviation program that's going in there. They got drawings. They had 71 different bid packages that went out. Everything's moving along, except now they have to wait on, they got regional FAA approval from Detroit, but it got kicked to Washington, and they got to wait on that. They're hoping to break ground like as soon as possible, next week being beautiful weather, and they're hoping to turn some dirt before it gets too terrible out, and they don't know that that's going to happen. So once again, a bureaucratic kind of hurry up and wait. And I think Mr. Martin tweeted out that we had a Butler Tech, is he in the aviation program?
Garrett
Soloed
Garcia.
the other day, soloed an airplane and is on his way to get his pilot's license.
Oh.
16 years old.
16 years, won't be out junior.
Probably doesn't have his driver's license,
I was just going to ask, does he have his driver's
Fly a
license yet?
plane.
but he can fly a plane. Pretty neat. And then, as I mentioned last month, this is the 50th anniversary in 2025 of Butler Tech. Jan Seifert has put out a little short YouTube video that they shot. It's really well done for 3 days of production. If you search Butler Tech 50th anniversary on YouTube, it'll pop right up. But they're going to roll out a whole bunch of things here slowly with the all-staff meeting being the first event where they're going to roll out the logo and list what other events they're going to do. I'm sure they're going to have an open house. But the video was very interesting. You see what Route 4 and D. Russell Lee looked like in 1975, and then you look at what Butler Tech buildings, they got 3 campuses on that road now, and Bioscience and Natural Science Center, and how it's changed. It's interesting to look at from a historical perspective. And then they are currently negotiating with Miami University about putting a Bachelor of Science nursing program at the Bioscience Center to develop a BS pathway for students that are enrolled in nursing, pre-nursing at Butler Tech. And they're hoping to work out a program where they may only have to go a couple of months extra to get, come out of there with a nursing degree, which would be pretty awesome, especially since nursing and EMTs and they're high demand right now. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, coming to the time of the meeting for public comments, we have one request from Martha Mells. So Martha, the floor is yours.
I've prepared some comments for the board. Would you like me to just read them from the chair?
Whatever you feel comfortable with, but we would like to get you a microphone.
Everyone hear me?
We need to give you a microphone so that you can be heard by.
I'm not known for having low volume. Okay. Hello. Is this on? Test.
Gotcha.
Good evening, Ross board members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Martha Mell, and I'm the chairperson of the Ross Community Foundation. The purpose for my visit this evening is to share some history of the RCF, review the grants that have been awarded to Ross schools, and finally to make a few requests of the school board members. My husband Dana and I founded the RCF in March of 22 in partnership with over 40 local families as the first affiliate of the Hamilton Community Foundation. The RCF board consists of 5 voluntary members who work passionately to fulfill our mission, which is to support charitable activities in our communities. Unlike typical nonprofits, a community foundation like ours is designed to provide perpetual support by growing contributions to meet the ever-changing needs of our communities and granting back part of the growth. Give, grow, grant is the cycle. To date, the RCF has granted $48,150 to nonprofits in our communities. Of this total, $22,399, or 47%, has been granted to projects submitted from Ross schools. Let us review. 5th grade intervention language art materials submitted by Nicole Green received $4,000 in 2023 and $3,449 this year. Jumpstart Summer Band Camp submitted by Ron Mead received $3,200 in 2023 and $3,750 this year. Ross Choral Association uniforms submitted by Beth Sepfel received $2,500 in 2023 and $2,000 for show choir costume cards this year. Morgan Outdoor Learning Space submitted by Kelly McGinnis received $2,500 this year for that project. Ross Rambotics submitted by Laura Counts received $1,000 this year. The RCF established a scholarship fund in 2022 for one Ross High School graduate. To date, 2 $2,000 scholarships have been awarded. The balance of the grants awarded in 2023 and 2024 were given to a variety of nonprofits in our communities, ranging from Ross and Morgan Ministries, St. Joseph School, Butler Philharmonic, Hearts for Hope, and the Ross Township Historical Society. I have a few requests for you folks this evening. Several of you are already members of the RCF, and to that I say thank you for your generosity. Tonight, I would like to encourage all board members to make a gift to RCF and become members of this wonderful organization. By doing so, you will set an example not only to the teachers and staff of the Ross school system, but to the community at large. The RCF board strongly believes that every dollar counts, and so our Community Harvest campaign levels reflect this philosophy. I will leave you with a Community Harvest brochure with the hope that you will consider gifting now and in the future, thus growing the impact the RCF will have on our communities and our schools. My final request is that you consider supporting the RCF through your gift of tithes and testimony. Tithes and testimony. Personal connections and shared stories coming from each of you are invaluable when supporting a local nonprofit like the Ross Community Foundation. These gifts not only build trust and foster relationships within the community, but they also inspire others to connect with us and to give. In closing, with your permission, I would like to periodically attend these meetings to give you an update on fundraising, most importantly, update you on the impact that RCF is having in our communities and in our schools. Give where you live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Martha. And we appreciate the support that the RCF has given to all those school programs very much.
Right.
I'm sure we'll be getting a lot more requests. Can I lay this down?
Okay. Dr. Rice, we're ready for your recommendations.
Thank you so much.
First item I have for your approval this evening is letter A, policies as read and discussed at the September board meeting.
Okay. We have we went over these policies at the September board meeting. Have we had any public comment on any of those?
No, sir.
Okay. So, do we have a motion to approve those policies?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, let's call the roll, please.
Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
Mr. Gunther?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Next item I have for your approval this evening is letter B, personnel. This includes resignations, employment, supplemental and stipends, which again are leadership positions, club sponsors, and home instruction. Number 4 on that list is science of reading stipends. As mentioned at the previous board meeting, the district is made whole on those stipends. Each teacher that receives that stipend, we receive a reimbursement from the state. Number 5 on that list is advanced degree submissions. These are for teaching staff who have completed courses to move up on the teaching pay schedule. And number 6 is tuition reimbursement. These are teachers who have completed coursework meeting the requirements as per the contract to receive tuition reimbursement. No new positions were added.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve those personnel items?
I'll make the motion.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, no discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Castater.
Mr. Gunther?
Yes. Sorry.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Yes.
Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Castater,
Treasurer's
reports.
recommendations tonight, I have 7 items on the agenda for approval tonight. I want to touch briefly on just a couple of them. We'll start at the bottom, the Community Behavioral Health Agreement for Queen of Peace. People may not be aware completely, we do receive money from the state every year that is earmarked for Queen of Peace School. It's held in a separate fund in our accounting system. It doesn't come out of our general fund. It's in a separate fund. We work with the Archdiocese and with the principal, Mr. Mears, at Queen of Peace Schools to determine how they would like to use those funds each year. So part of what they're using the funds for this year is to hire what looks like a school social worker, I guess, to work a couple days a week at Queen of Peace. So that has not come directly from Ross School funding. That is designated and earmarked from the state for Queen of Peace.
Right.
Two other items, letters D and G, have to do with school buses. We are a member of the EPC Purchasing Cooperative. We've done a number of things with them. They asked that we approve a resolution in order for them to be able to accept bus bids on our behalf, so we don't have to formally bid out purchasing of buses. They handle that for a large portion of school districts throughout Southwest Ohio. So we approved the resolution saying, yes, we want to be a part of your bid program. And then they accept bids from all of the vendors, and we're able to kind of pick and choose from there. So to go along with that, letter G, we are asking for approval tonight for a bid to purchase 4 buses. So we've been on a cycle the last several years of purchasing 2 to 3 per year. We've got some additional needs right now that we're trying to address that we've talked about at length in our facilities committee. But we are asking to purchase 4 school buses for this year through the EPC consortium, and those funds are coming from permanent improvement. They're not coming from the general fund. We're using permanent improvement funds to pay for those purchases. Then the last one is a resolution to apply for funding from the OFCC through House Bill 264, which was an energy-saving ELF loan program that the state's had in place for a number of years. I want to make it clear that applying for this program does not commit us to do anything. So this is kind of the first step to see if the projects that we're submitting for approval would be approved. There's also a unique opportunity this year. Not only do they have the ELF loan program available, which is a low interest rate loan, 0.25%. I think we've talked about that several times in meetings over the past several years. They also have grant funding available this year as well. So we have to complete this application in order to be eligible for the potential of grant funding, which would be money that's just given to us to help us complete some of these projects. So if we decide to move forward with this after the application is submitted, we will have another opportunity for a more in-depth presentation to the board and to the community that outlines some of the projects we're looking at within this House Bill 264 program. So this is just the first step to approve the application, and then we get started to see if they would even be in favor of helping to fund some of the projects we're looking at.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendations?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. No discussion. Call the roll, please.
Yes. Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Yes.
Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
Mr. Gunther?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. Thank you.
Good.
Next on the agenda would be our board committee reports. I know our Finance and Facilities Committee met. So I think, Mr. Gunther, were you going to present something from the Finance Committee?
Yes. So last week we met, we had a community member come in and talk about an existing lawsuit that's been out there for several years, asking, what the status of it is, and Mr. Castater is going to follow up on that to let us know. It was over an HVAC
Old LG
issue
lawsuit.
that was statewide. That was the same contractor, same type of equipment that was installed in our building that has also failed in other buildings across the state. So what kind of lawsuit was it a class action?
It's there's several school districts involved. It was
Okay.
both an installer. LG was the manufacturer. Triton Industries was the installer. So it was kind of a conglomeration suit. I think maybe at least three school districts that were a part of that.
Okay. So that's something that we'll be following up on shortly.
Mhm.
Also reviewed the forecast for the next couple years. We've got a balanced budget for the next year or two. Then at that point, it kind of gets a little questionable with the biennium budget coming up and flat funding. There's a lot of unknowns. So, when we try to predict for the future, we try to overestimate on the amount of money that we're going to be spending and be a little conservative on how much money we're going to be receiving due to things that are out of our control. So medical benefits, things like that we can't control that can swing our budget, multiple percentage points. So it's a little hard to do that. So next couple of years look pretty good. After that, it's a little hard to, pin the tail on the donkey, if you want to call it that. Third thing was the EPC cooperative. That was one of the bigger things. Lastly, we brought up some of the grass cutting contracts. We put a bid out for contract. We received it, and we'll be discussing that in the next upcoming month or two, where we proceed with that.
Okay. Any discussion on the grass cutting?
No, I mean, it's we've had, I can speak from my personal experience in it. Before I was on the board, before I'm made aware of anything, you kind of look around at the grounds and the grass cutting. I've been a soccer coach for many years for MRA, and we used to use the Elda Fields for their facilities. We're no longer doing that. We're now up at White Oak Christian Church, but one of the things back then that was noticed was that the grass just wasn't cut. So you got kids that are trying to learn to play soccer with grass that's 8 inches tall. It just doesn't work. So, there's some conversations that'll be happening, to kind of follow up with that and, talk to other places and kind of see where we go. But I just wanted to kind of voice my personal experience on it. Just kind of go from there.
Okay. Do we have anything from facilities?
We have not met since last board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it for board committees. Let's go around the table here, and we didn't get a chance to do this at the last board meeting. It was a lengthy meeting, so we don't want to forget it tonight. So, Mr. Kleinfelder, anything that you'd like to mention?
Just congratulations to the commended and National Merit semifinalists. That's a pretty big deal. And if they got perfect scores, there's probably 85–90% chance or 2 of them will be finalists. So that's pretty awesome. And thanks for the food service update. Food, I ate cafeteria food for 30-some years. It's always been good. So.
Yeah. But
Only during during the Michelle Obama years when they didn't put salt or pepper on anything, got a little rough. But other than that,
we were allowed to eat ding dongs and Twinkies. Right?
yeah, well, hey,
Fried.
whatever they had.
Mr. Gunther?
Try to, in addition to what Keith just said, also like to thank Martha for coming in. The RCF is a great foundation. I've been in contact with Martha and Dana before over, what they do. A lot of these pamphlets and the flyers that you see out of there, it's all out of, the board's money. So what you see, the money, everything that you put into the fund is being used. You talk about donating to certain funds, and they've got a certain amount of overhead that they pay people out and make people, 90% would be fantastic, but I think there's a lot of funds that are very, very low. But with RCF, it's 100%. So everything that you put in is perpetual. So it's like good foundation to be a part of. In addition, one of the things we approved was the reimbursement for tuitions and advanced degrees. It's always good to see, teachers being supported for advancing their degrees to ultimately creating a great education system. So just thanks to the teachers and the support that they get.
Okay. Mr. Beckman?
Again, congratulations to the National Merit Scholars and the semifinalists there. I think that's a phenomenal. I wish I could have done that when I was their age. But thanks again, Martha, for coming in and talking about the RCF. Thanks again for the food presentation. Other than that, I think that's about it.
Okay. Mrs. Webb?
Ditto. Yeah, congratulations to the National Merit Scholarship recipients. I mean, that's very commendable. Martha, thank you for being here. I do want to look into this and would love to become a part of this foundation, so I'm going to be in touch with you. Okay, great. And then my last comment is I just want to thank everybody that was a part of and involved with organizing that community pep rally a few weeks ago. I got to attend that, and just exuded such, I mean, just enthusiasm, and it was just such a jovial atmosphere. Everybody coming together, the fireworks, the floats, the parade, the food trucks. And so I thank you, Mr. Martin. I know Rebecca Butts isn't here, Justin's not here, and whoever else helped to organize that, because I really thought it was just a great showing of community spirit and getting everybody together. It was so, I loved it, and I think it had, it was very popular in the community, so I hope that we continue that tradition. So, thanks.
I'd just like to second that, because, you know, it takes a lot of extra work on the part of people at the high school to put that together. I mean, you've got the floats building, which is, you know, I don't know how many schools are still doing float building, but there aren't many, as are there.
We're the only one.
Yeah. But, you know, it's still a big deal, and it takes a lot of coordination and work on the part of the class advisors to do that sort of thing. You know, the parade, the whole, everything was done well, and Mr. Martin, please pass along our thanks to your staff for doing such a great job with that. It is a big deal in Ross, no doubt about it. I remember when my wife's cousin visited us during homecoming one year, and we were down watching the parade, and here comes the parade, and, you know, crowds or whatever, and she said, "This is like a Norman Rockwell painting," which I think is a high compliment. So thank you again very much for all that you did, and congratulations, of course, to our So we had 3 people that were recognized, right, through the National Merit Scholarship Program, and
Yes, one commended.
is that the most we've ever had, or not? Pretty close to it,
I don't
maybe.
know that we've ever had more than 2 semifinalists. I don't think since I've been here.
Yeah.
I'm sure when Mr. Kleinfelder was here, we probably doesn't ever.
Get some smart kids come together.
Yeah, I think 2's the highest we've ever had since
Yeah.
I've been here.
Well, that's great, and let's keep it up.
Class of 71 had the most, didn't it?
Well, I was thinking I had a perfect score on the PSAT, you know, in 71, but I could be mistaken. Actually, my permanent file's on record, so.
We'll verify that.
All right, great. Well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm sure there's no discussion. Call the roll, please.
Yes. Mr. Beckman?
Yes.
Mr. Gunther?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelder?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Now we just need to bring back the bonfire.